Greetings and blessings, everyone. Welcome to Lights for the Way podcast. I am your host, James Thomas Devitt. We are sponsored by the Blue Star Spiritual Group. Now, I had someone contact me recently and ask me a question. And this question was what I saw happening in this world and what's going on in this world. And so this show is going to be something that I've never done before. I've always stayed away from making predictions of any kind, mainly because no prediction is ever written in stone. Even if it comes true, it's still not written in stone. Okay? It's not actually in stone unless it actually occurs. All a prediction is a potential. And there are different layers and levels of potentials. And there is a little room that I can access that I discovered many, many years ago called the Room of Potentials. And it's a room that I haven't visited in a long time because I try and stay focused in the now moment and what's going on today rather than trying to figure out what the hell's going to happen tomorrow. Because if I'm all focused on what's going to happen tomorrow, I'm going to miss everything that's happening today. Now, first off, before we get really rolling on this potential show, I want to thank all of you who are listening to the podcast. I know that we are still new. We are still growing. We have a lot of stuff in the pipeline. We eventually will be having guests on the show. Currently, our shows are around 30 to 40 minutes. Eventually, when we have guests on the show, the shows will start getting longer. In our last show, it was on starseeds. And later today, Anita and I are going to be doing another show on starseeds. It's going to be Starseeds Part 2. And we're going to be going into things like approximately how many different worlds and places that starseeds come from and things like this. But today's show is on what are the potentials. And so, Mary, thank you so much for your question. And for any of you who are interested, can email us on lightstheway@gmail.com and ask questions. You can give us some suggestions of shows that you would like to listen to and hear, or topics that you would like to see discussed or talked about. And we are always very open to receiving emails on this. So, potential. So, when I look at what's going on in the world, there are certain things that come to my mind. When I was growing up, my favorite subject in school was history. And of course, when I was a kid, I did not realize that I was missing out on a hell of a lot of stuff. Growing up in the U.S., it was all geared around U.S. history. And as I've gotten older and moved out into the world more, shall we say, because of course I lived in Germany for a while when I was in the military. And then of course in 2000, over 17 years ago, I left the States for Australia and have only been back to the States once and will never actually live in the States ever again because I found home. I'm now living in, of course, Dunedin, New Zealand. And those of you who know me know where I am. And so I've been looking and watching things happen. And in history class, had a teacher who made a comment one day that kind of stuck with me. You know, it's interesting how there are different things that are said or that are done that just stick with you. And it just, I don't know, it's really weird. It just sticks like glue and it's something that you just don't forget. And it's really mind-blowing, okay? And so that's one of them, you know. If you don't learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it. And that's always stuck with me. So I look at this world and I look at and see what's happened. Okay. Now we've got easy examples. We've got a little bit more complex examples. Germany started World War I, did not go well for them, and so they tried it again, and it didn't go well for them. They didn't learn from history. But let's go a little bit further back, much further back, much further back. At one time, the main religions on this planet were Druidism. It was the ancient gods and goddesses of Greece and Egypt. As the story goes, the Romans kind of borrowed from the Greeks to create their own gods and goddesses. You had the religions of like the Mayans and the Aztecs, the spirituality of the Native American Indians, all these different things, and everything. And a lot of these religions have gone away. They've ended, shall we say. And they were replaced by new religions. And of course, the last of these new religions to come on the scene was Islam around 500 years ago. Now, one thing that you can be certain of, religions will go away. So my first potential is the ending of religion. But now we're talking probably anywhere from 75 to 150 years from now. The second potential, and I do see this world and have seen this world religion free, where people are actually living spiritually. They are living, in a spiritual manner, in a spiritual way, but without religion, without dogma, without rules, shall we say. Focus more on assisting each other and improving oneself and things like this. Now, the second one, every empire that we have known has fallen on this planet. Some have fallen quickly, some have fallen slowly. Now, and it's like as it takes a very certain individual to be able to step up and be the leader of a falling empire. The one that comes to mind in modern times was in 1989, Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union, who saw the fall, if you will, of the Soviet Union and the breakup of the satellite countries such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, on and on and on, to where instead of the Soviet Union, you had Russia, you had the bringing down of the wall in Berlin and the reunification of Germany and Berlin. But the Roman Empire went away. I mean, Emperor Constantine, saw what was basically the destruction of the Roman Empire when, you had such conflicts and bashings and killings and everything going on between the pagans and the Christians, that he actually he did not want to be known as the emperor who lost the empire. So he chose to go with Christianity because he knew it wasn't going to go away and there was no way that they could stop it. Now, what that entails is another show, so we're not going to go into that. But every empire has fallen. Now, one of the slower empires to fall has been England. At one time, of course, they had Hong Kong, they had India, they had many of the countries in Africa, they had places in the Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean, they have Gibraltar. and they basically took over Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland, and basically all that's left is of course you've got the British Virgin Islands, you've got Gibraltar, and now you've got the UK, which there is talk. I don't there. I feel that it is a strong potential at the moment of Scotland possibly going breaking away from the UK and rejoining the Euro and the European Union. There are rumblings currently that Wales may follow suit, as well as Northern Ireland rejoining Ireland, which would be quite a coup, if you will, because the IRA was all about the reunification of Ireland, and to come to think that it took simply a vote of the UK to leave the European Union to make it happen. You know, there's a potential that England could be just back down to nothing more than England. I don't see Wales going that route. In the moment, I'm not really seeing Northern Ireland go that route, although I think there's stronger potential for Northern Ireland over Wales. I do feel that the strongest potential, of course, is Scotland, and if Scotland goes, then it's very likely that Northern Ireland will go. And that will basically consolidate the destruction, if you will, of the British Empire. Now, the current empire, shall we say, in the world that is going through death throes right now, as we speak, is the United States. And there are signs in showing, the amount of red tape and clutter within America is atrocious. How they treat their people is atrocious. After 9/11, you had the Patriot Act and the Patriot Act 2, which basically took away a lot of the freedoms of the American people. Now, I'm originally from the States. I love the United States. I grew up in Oklahoma, and people look at me and they go, "Oh, where are you from?" And I say, "Well, I'm a white trailer trash Southern redneck." And they laugh, and I laugh, and then I said, "But I really am. I grew up in a trailer park, and I'm from the South, and have a nice day." And I'm proud of it. I really am proud of it, even though my wife has a tendency to say, "Oh, you need to stop saying that." But I mean, I am proud of that, and the people in the South, the people that I've known and everything, wonderful, wonderful people. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, whatever. It doesn't matter. Wonderful people. And but I'm seeing things happen. You're having regular mass shootings, but then it goes beyond that. We have a situation where we just recently had the Las Vegas shooting. Now, apparently there was last I heard personally, 58 killed, over 500 wounded, and they're saying that it was carried out by one gentleman who's retired, like from normal like mainstream jobs, but is a professional gambler. I guess his bet didn't pay off though. And basically they know nothing about him. His girlfriend apparently, who is an Australian citizen from the Philippines, living with him in his retirement village, was actually in the Philippines when the attack happened. There have been numerous reports of multiple shooters, but the officials are maintaining that he was the only one, but they know nothing about him. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, right? It's like every mass shooting ends up being the worst in American history. And it goes on and on and on. 2 days after this mass shooting, what do we have? In, I believe it was Mississippi, we had 8 and 10-year-olds and adults, but children as well, selling raffle tickets for a Christian church. Okay? They're raising money, and that's all good. They raise money for the charity work that they do and everything. That aspect isn't a problem. I guess the problem is the fact that the two main prizes are AK-47 assault rifles being sold by a Christian church. I actually saw an ad once that showed a gentleman in Texas who said that he felt so much better because now he could go to church packing a weapon. Things are falling apart in the U.S. And the potential that I'm seeing in the moment, to be honest with you, is as follows. We have Donald Trump, who a lot of people hate, and it's true, they do. They hate him. There's a lot of people who don't really care for Donald Trump. However, as the elected president of the United States of America, they support him because that's what they do. There are still people in America to this day who actually believe everything that the government says. And as there's no mental health process really anymore anywhere, these people aren't really being checked out. That's a joke. Sorry. Bad joke, but joke nonetheless. I learned when I was, in single digits growing up not to trust the government. Massachusetts was the latest state to authorize the legalization of marijuana. And it continues to march around the U.S. as it is being shown over and over again in different states that have legalized it, that it has given the state an enormous amount of money to utilize for education and healthcare and stuff. The number of people using hard drugs has gone down, and in truth, the number of people actually smoking marijuana has gone down. And I see that continuing. But President Trump, Republicans don't like him, and neither do the Democrats. And the reason that they don't like him is very simple. He's not a political insider. So he's basically in there going, well, I'm going to do the best I can do. I'm going to do everything I can to follow through on what I say I'm going to do. He's a dickhead. He's a reality TV star. He did a program on WWE with Vince McMahon where Vince McMahon ended up getting his head shaved. He's had how many seasons of The Apprentice and The Celebrity Apprentice and all this other stuff. He's a reality TV star, okay? You want a great example? Look at Mike Mizanin, who's known as The Miz in WWE. He was on The Real World, okay? And somehow broke into WWE, and he's one of their best acts, shall we say, because that's how he is. He's into that whole reality TV type genre and mentality and things like that. There is a potential, because you see, what a lot of people don't understand is there is a difference between the United States government and the states. There are 50 states. Then there is the territories, which are like Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, that are all part of the United States, but they're not states. What a lot of people don't understand is Washington, D.C., which has the White House, where the president lives, that has the House of Congress, that has all the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial and all of this stuff, is not a state. It is the District of Columbia. I personally can see the downfall of the United States government. I think that's a very strong potential. And it would come down to the states. And it would come down to a reorganization. I can see that as a potential. China is maintaining its communism, as it were, but at the same time, it's beginning to see that in order to actually proceed forward, they have to change. And they are very, very slowly beginning to change. I honestly believe that Kim Jong un and North Korea are simply playing the antagonists to create fear, to create doubt, to create separation. I actually wonder if they actually truly have nuclear weapons. I personally see that the potential is that there's going to be something that occurs in North Korea, and it may be a preemptive strike, and it's going to lay waste to North Korea, and it's going to be done in such a way that any true weapons that they have, there's nothing that they can do. The other potential that I feel very strongly is that within the next 50 years, I honestly believe and I honestly feel as though there is a very strong potential that something is going to occur on a natural disaster level. And this is going to create a lot of destruction, more so than others can imagine, to be honest with you. It's a clearing. There's so many different ways that we can view things, and there's different ways that we can see things as they are happening. And it's one of those situations where we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? I personally feel like there is going to be a clearing of beings on this planet. People are going to scream in terror because I feel that there's going to be a great loss of life. And the problem is that it's a paradox, because on one side, for those of us here, we're going to be aghast, and we are going to be, it's going to just screw with people so much. And yet on the other side, it's necessary to reorganize the energies on this planet. They have been set in motion in a certain way for a very, very long time, and it needs to be altered. It needs to be changed. Okay? It's really up in the air whether Trump will finish his first term or not. It really is up in the air. It's going to depend upon the choices that people make. There is a potential he won't survive office. But if he gets taken out, it will become public that it was the government who took him out. That's the greatest potential in the moment. There is a great excitement on the other side over what's happening now. So I'm going to tell you why all the mass shootings in America. You look at it and you say, this is so horrible. This is not pretty. This is not the way it should be. How horrible is this? on and on and on. And they keep stepping up and doing these mass shootings, and all of these people die, and they're trying so hard to teach people this is not the way to go anymore. You have to put your weapons down. You have to start loving each other. You've got Black Lives Matter. If they continue down the path that they're going, you will see a limited, but you will see a race war happen in America. They are, in truth, as racist or more racist than even the KKK. And coming from somebody who was raised in a state that had the Klan, we actually had the Klan come to my high school recruiting when I was in grade 11. That says a lot. I take Morgan Freeman's mentality and approach, and he's basically like, you stop calling me a black man, I stop calling you a white man, and we'll be good. Race has nothing to do with anything. If you're disabled, it has nothing to do with anything. If you're from America, Canada, Germany, Russia, wherever you're from, doesn't have anything to do with anything. How you live your life, that's what means something. See, do you love each other? Do you have respect for each other? So here is the greatest potentials happening at this time. I've been going over different things. So these are the potentials over the next 100 years. The destruction of the United States, a complete reorganization of China, a severe natural disaster in India, which would take out a lot of different people, a very severe natural disaster happening in America that would also take out a lot of people. These are the potentials. The continuation of the decline of religions on this planet. And more people refusing to play. When you have, if you think about it, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, all of these empires, they were basically destroyed. And then they were able to rise again. It's like the phoenix. Catches fire and is destroyed. And in the ash and the destruction, it is born anew. So here's the potential. Think about this. For those of you in my age bracket, 40s, 50s, even 30s, time is going faster and faster. It's like it's going downhill at the moment. And the problem is the fact that we are now moving into a situation where this world is going to crash. And from that crash, the new is going to rise again. But it's going to be brand new. New choices. Sometimes you get to a point and you can't, so much has happened, so much has occurred, there's nothing you can do to change the direction that it's going in except to literally stop it, destroy it, and then start again. So you want the potential, that's it. This world is not going to be destroyed. All life on this planet is not going to become extinct. That's not going to happen. And for all those individuals who will leave during the natural disasters or destruction or whatever, they will come back over time as the population regrows and moves forward again. The prophecies of the Bible, of Armageddon, the final battle of light and dark, which sees the destruction of everything, that's not going to happen this time. The plug has been pulled 4 times before, but not this time. There are groups and people behind the scenes with technologies that if they brought it to the forefront today, I swear to God, within 1 month, every single person on this planet would have a home, have a roof over their head, plenty to eat. All oil companies and electric companies would cease, wouldn't be needed. We would have all the power we need for free. Get rid of all the money. See, this is what will eventually happen. But in order to get through it, it's time for the storm. And I'm going to tell you now, the storm, it's coming. It's already started. We haven't hit the main part of the storm yet. It's coming. So you ask yourself a simple question, and this is where I'm going to leave the show today. And trust me, people, this is my one-off on potential shows, okay? I'd really prefer to stay away from this myself, but here's what you have to do. You want to know what you need to do? Here's what you need to do. You want to know what you need to do? You need to stay in today. Stay in the moment. Follow your heart and guidance, trust your intuition, and discern the information you're given. I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but I'm going to tell you right now, the ascension is going to happen. It's not happening in our lifetime. It's not time for it. The ascension is not for the star seeds. It's for the native human population. And now it's time to take the human population into phase 2. And that's why all of this is happening. And it's going to continue until the clearing really ramps up and completes. Be in the moment. Love yourself. Love each other. The more you do that, and the more people who do that, the easier the transition will be. So the greatest potential? There's a phrase that always makes me laugh. If I offend anyone with it, please understand, simply a phrase. Buckle up, assholes. It's about to get real.